If you have followed the epic and almost Shakespearean downfall of Alex Murdaugh, and who hasn't, you will remember the Murdaugh family housekeeper who died under mysterious circumstances years before Alex's wife Maggie and his younger son Paul were murdered on the back 40. Her name was Gloria Satterfield, and her sons were among the many victims of Murdaugh's fraud and embezzlement. But Gloria Satterfield was not the Murdaugh's only domestic helper. Blanca Turrubiate-Simpson spent more than a decade in the Murdaugh home. She was a housekeeper and an assistant to Maggie Murdaugh. After Maggie and Paul were murdered, Blanca adopted the family dog, Bubba, and cares for that dog to this day. Amazingly, she says police never questioned her about anything that she may have seen or known or suspected. But she saw and knew plenty, and she's put it all down in a brand new book called Within the House of Murdaugh, Amid a Unique Friendship, Blanca and Maggie. She joins me now with her co-author, Mary Frances Weaver. Welcome to the both of you. Blanca, I am so curious about what you lived and saw and experienced inside the Murdaugh home before the murders of Paul and Maggie. Was the Alec Murdaugh that you knew, having known him for 10 years, was he capable of the kind of horror that he was convicted of?
I didn't expect that. It was not, they were just a normal family, very loving. He was very nurturing, always joking around. They were a regular family.
I kept expecting to hear some sort of secret world of hate inside that house, or a violent Alec Murdaugh who used to beat his kids or his wife, or say terrible things or do terrible things. Because in order to murder your wife and your son, it's got to be bad. So I was shocked, and I'm just wondering what your level of understanding was when you heard the news that he was guilty of these murders. Do you still believe it? Do you believe that he actually did it?
I do believe he did it.
Tell me why.
I am convinced that he did it. But I don't believe that he will ever tell anybody the truth.
What makes you believe that he did do it? I mean, I know the evidence in court. I know that he lied. I know he was on video down, at the dog kennels right before they were shot. But I keep thinking there must have been something else, something like a drug cartel that came in and shot, his family and said, "Buster's next if you ever reveal what happened, but you better pay us now." That made more sense to me than the guy that you just explained was, part of a loving family, deciding to just murder his wife and son right there in cold blood. Does it still strike you as just unfathomable?
Knowing the family and knowing their routine, and I've always said this. When they're during the kennel video, the dogs are quiet at the kennels. You don't hear the dogs moving around or whatever, because they're familiar with the individuals that are there, which is Alex, Maggie, and Paul. Even though Paul's messing with Cash, the chocolate lab. But when he calls 911 and he's on the phone with a dispatcher, you can clearly hear on the call, when he's on the call, I actually hear a door close, and I hear the dogs barking in the back, which tells me that there's somebody else out there. The dogs are alerting. Many people, have said other things that he couldn't possibly, but the dogs, even Alec at trial, when he testified, he said the dogs were not sensing anybody there. They didn't sense anybody else, so they were quiet because they knew the family. And then when he's on the call with 911, when he says here, they try to explain it off. The problem that I have with when he said here, I believe he was handing something to somebody else that was there, which I call the cleaners.
Oh, is it
in
just
the book.
I hear what you say.
But
yeah, as if to say, here, hold this, or here, grab this, or like that kind of here is the comment you think you're hearing. Can I ask you, it's shocking that the police didn't ask to interview you. It just makes absolutely no sense that you, who knew so much about that family, you weren't one of the first people that they questioned. But you do have a story that you recount in this book about a towel, and how there was a towel that was seen on the body cam of the responding officers that made you have an aha moment. Can you explain what happened with the towel to the viewers?
Okay, the police officers, I had Deputy Laura Rutland, and I did have a SLED agent that came and spoke to me probably almost a week after the murders happened. I did briefly speak to SLED throughout their investigation. But as far as in the beginning, they never pulled me to the side. They never questioned me. They never asked me anything like they were doing the other, like Mr. Dale or Mr. Rowe. They never approached me the way that they approached them. The towel, when I saw the body cam video, I remember my husband told me that they had released the body cam video, Officer Green's body cam video. He asked me if I wanted to watch it at first, and at first I was like, no, I don't want to watch it. And then shortly after, he's like, I think you need to watch it. So once I watched it, it was just a glimpse. Officer Green kind of turned, and his body cam picked up the inside of the Suburban, and I saw the towel. Once I saw that towel, I immediately I contacted somebody in law enforcement, and I asked them where the towel was at, what happened to the towel. And a particular SLED agent told me that I needed to stop
obsessing over it.
Obsessing over
wow.
Everything that was going on, and I needed just to go get help. That I needed.
And to be clear,
so basically,
the towel, just to be clear, what was significant about the towel that you saw in his Suburban? Why did that matter to you?
Nobody ever mentioned the towel anywhere. Nobody ever said anything about the towel. I just was simply asking what happened to the towel, because I knew the towel was not on the top shelf where I had left it. It was 4 towels, 1 was missing. The T-shirt that he was wearing on the video with Officer Green was the T-shirt that I had hung in the laundry room when I laundered the towels and the T-shirt. It didn't have any iron marks. Once I saw the towel, like I told my husband to go back on the video, and I was trying to see if there was marks on just to see if there was any iron marks on the towel, where I folded. And there wasn't any, so I was more than positive that that was the T-shirt that I had left in there, because it wasn't there when I went back, and there was only 3 towels on that top shelf. And then I remember Mr. Waters saying that there was his phone there was no steps on his phone, and there was no movement, and then all of a sudden it just kind of, I guess he got the burst of energy. So he said, and started moving around.
Mary Frances Weaver, let me ask you this as the co-author. My apologies. We have a delay, so I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did want to ask you this, Fran. What still nags you?
Okay.
What's the biggest question that still nags you about this case?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Okay, what is hard for me to wrap my head around is the fact that Blanca has shared so many, many details about the family unit, how they interacted with one another. And it was really a very lovely, caring family with many examples to back that up. And for him to go from that, his family to go from that, to seeing him in the courtroom, he just appeared to me to be pure evil. And that was very difficult for me to wrap my head around.
I'm so thankful for both of you to be here. My apologies again. This delay is always so uncomfortable. But Blanca Turrubiate-Simpson and Mary Frances Weaver, thank you both. The book, again, is called Within the House of Murdaugh, Amid a Unique Friendship, Blanca and Maggie.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.